As we go. All right, here we go.
All right, welcome everybody. It's Monty Sokup. I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, Lawrence, Kansas.
Oh, shit.
Just our November 13th meeting. I'm going to have, Brad, are you ready to read the rules of engagement for the meeting?
We'll check with Leah and see if she's going to run that.
Or Leah, or someone, whoever wants to do that. And then what we'll do is we'll take roll and move into the agenda after that. We'll have open public comment as well. So, Leah, do you have those?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. I have a few housekeeping items for this hybrid meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled. All chats will go directly to me. Unless you are participating during the meeting, please turn your video off. This allows the active meeting participants to be seen on the screen. You will still be able to hear the meeting. When you are participating, please turn your video on. If you have any trouble, you can send me a chat. The city reserves the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting, and I will make a few notes on public comment. When the chair calls for public comment, individuals attending in person should approach the podium to indicate they wish to speak. The podium can be raised and lowered, and we encourage you to use this feature to ensure your comments are heard. Individuals participating via Zoom should use the raised hand function to indicate they wish to speak. Please leave your virtual hand raised until you are called on. Individuals will be called on in the order they appear on the meeting host screen. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Thank you, and now I'll turn the meeting back over to Mr. Sokup.
All right, thank you, Leah. I am going to take the roll, and when we have votes, this will be the order we call roll in on the vote. So just keep that in mind. Karen Willie?
Present.
Sarah Waters?
Present.
Nicholas Ward?
Present.
Phil Englehart?
Here.
Mark Bueller?
Here.
Christina Gentry?
She
Saw her here. Erica Zimmerman?
Here.
Dana Ortiz?
Here.
Shannon Oury?
Here.
Thomas Howe? Thomas is absent. Monty Sokup here. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 members. So we have a quorum. Thank you. With that, we will move on to public comment. So at this point, we have one written comment. I just draw your attention to the letter supporting the East Heights Family Housing Project in there. Do we have anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in public comment? No one in the room. I see no hands on the screen. If somebody else sees a hand on the screen, please help me. I'm not the best at catching those. With that, I'm going to close public comment, and we'll move on to approving the minutes. So I would accept a motion to approve the minutes from October 16th, 2023.
Sarah Waters, I move to approve the minutes from October 16th.
We have a motion. Anybody second?
Second.
Phil Englehart, second. Any comments, questions? A closed discussion and call roll. So we're voting to do we have a question? Oh, no. Okay. We're voting to approve the minutes as written. Karen Willie.
Approve.
Sarah Waters.
Approve.
Nicholas Ward.
Approve.
Phil Englehart.
Approve.
Mark Bueller.
Can I approve them if I wasn't here?
Yes.
Approved.
Christina Gentry.
Approved.
Erica Zimmerman.
Approve.
Dana Ortiz.
Approved.
Shannon Oury.
Approved.
Monty Sokup, approved. Motion passes 10-0. Okay, we're going to move on to the next part of our agenda, which are regular agenda items. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of, we're going to spend, 10 to 15 minutes on these like 6 items, and we're going to spend the majority of the meeting on our decision-making process. I think most of this is reporting by Leah. Certainly, if there are questions, feel free to ask questions, but we're going to try to keep this moving so we have plenty of time to just do our hard work today. All right, number 1, receive staff update on AHAB membership.
Hi, this is Leah Roslin, Affordable Housing Administrator. Just wanted to let the board know that Trent Santee, our rep with the Home Builders Association, did submit his resignation. And so at this time, we have 2 open seats. We have the member at large seat open and the Home Builders rep seat open. And the city manager's office and mayor is aware, and we're just awaiting on those new appointments.
So I would just add to that, if anybody has nominees that they think would be good candidates to serve on this committee, get those to Leah. She'll get them onto the city manager's office for consideration. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Shannon Oury with the Housing Authority, and my term expires at the end of December. And so, so we'll have a different appointee. And Leah, if you will get back to us how you want us to submit who we are recommending.
I believe the same thing is for Family Promise of Lawrence, Leah.
Thank you both. I will circle back to you.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that? Next item, receive staff update on affordable housing sales taxes collected. This was requested in our previous meeting. Somebody wanted to get an update on exactly where we are on collection. So, Leah?
This is Leah Roslin, Affordable Housing Administrator. In 2023, to date, we have collected $871,203 in affordable housing sales tax. And I did link on the agenda to a public-facing webpage where the sales tax should be being reported. It looks like that's not bringing in the total amount of funds. So the number I got was from our city finance department and included affordable housing sales tax and affordable housing use tax. So the differentiation being sales tax collected, I believe, like in Lawrence, here locally in person, and then online sales tax collected is added to that for the total that I provided. Any questions about that?
I have a quick question, Leah. Phil Englehart. Does that basically represent the yield through August or something like that, August or September? I know there's some sort of lag involved, and I don't know if you know the answer. It's not critical, but I was just curious.
I believe it's through September. But my colleagues in the room, please correct me if I'm misunderstanding.
I think it is.
That is my understanding.
I'm also not an expert on taxes, but I believe it is about a 45 to 60-day lag typically in the way that it reports, but that may be specific to certain taxes. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah. But we're at 871, and so roughly 3/4 of the way through the year. So at that rate, we'd be 1.1 or whatever.
Right around.
Okay, that's all I was trying to get at. Thank you.
Yeah, as I recall, those run about 2 months behind because there's a state process money goes to the state and then comes back to us, and
right.
It's generally about 2 months.
And we are on track to meet projected sales tax revenue.
Okay.
Okay, item 3, receive, unless there's any other questions, I don't want to. You speak up because I'm going to keep us moving here. Receive request for City of Lawrence Utility Payment Plan recommendation. Leah, were you going to cover this as well, or do I need to pick that up?
This is Leah Roseland, Affordable Housing Administrator. Want to just give some short context and then hand it over to my colleague, Gabby Sprague. So the AHAB, the Housing Stabilization Collaborative, has requested that the Affordable Housing Advisory Board submit a letter of support for a utility payment plan program that they are recommending to the City of Lawrence. To just give some framework for this discussion and moving forward. A template letter is attached for the AHAB's review and consideration and edits. This month, Gabby is going to provide a short overview of the program that's being recommended and what is being asked for consideration of the AHAB. AHAB members can give any questions to Gabby at this time, have a very short discussion, and then, but no action is needed at this time. We'll pick it up again in the December meeting for further discussion, consideration, and action on this item. So I'll turn it over to Gabby.
Good morning, board members. My name is Gabby Sprague. I'm the Housing and Human Services Program Manager for Douglas County, Kansas government. I don't have a whole lot to add. Back in July, the HSC, which consists of over 15 local agencies, got together and thought about additional ways that we could support households. And one of those ways that came up was suggesting that the city establish a utility payment plan. And that's something that we wanted to approach the city commission about. And we thought that the AHAB, given its goals, would have an interest in doing that. The thinking behind that is there's only so much rent utility assistance money to go around. This might alleviate some of those pressures there. In addition, some of the money that goes to City of Lawrence bills actually comes from, or has been coming from, the Affordable Housing Advisory Board. So it's kind of like a circular thing where the city is like through the AHAB paying itself. So maybe this would alleviate some of that. I did have a little bit of a back and forth with Monty about specifics of the program over email. I had the Douglas County Management Analyst, Jake Broadbent, reach out to a couple municipalities to ask about specifics, including Independence, Missouri, Austin, Texas, and Garden City, Kansas. They weren't very forthcoming with information, though. I think it would be appropriate for the City Commission to direct a finance management analyst of the city to look into specifics if this was something they wanted to approach. I do want to say, like, in addition to everything I've said, this is important. We've had 1,100 shutoffs in the City of Lawrence from January to July just for water. So I would really appreciate the AHAB consider doing a letter of support for this to the City Commission. But that's about all I have. But I can answer any questions any of you have.
Thank you, Gabby. I probably asked way too many questions, Gabby, about this, but basically this comes down to the city creating a payment plan process so people can spread out their payments. They're really not asking for any additional money. They're not credits. They're just giving a way to even out their payments so they can make payments over time. Because I had 100 questions. So anyway, there's some other cities that do it around us. It looks pretty simple, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the utility department is not pushing back on this. They're willing to take a look at this. So anyway, it's just a matter of coming up with a formal letter that this board could support, I think.
Gas and
Certainly open.
electric companies do the same thing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gabby.
I did want to provide a little context. I've been speaking with Christy Webb, the utility billing manager over at the city, and it does seem like capacity is an issue to do this sort of thing. So it may take some money to actually do this with staffing issues. So I do want to be forthcoming about that.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
So this is Sarah Waters. So this is the equivalent of like a budget bill?
Yes.
Got it.
Like a level pay,
Yeah.
something like that.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions on that? All right, great. Thank you, Gabby. Let me see. Number 4, nominations for 2024 Affordable Housing Advisory Board Chair and Vice Chair. There's no action today, but just want people to think about if you would want to serve as chair or serve as co-chair, or if you would like to nominate someone. We're going to be doing nominations at our next meeting. So just be thinking about that. Is that sufficient, Leah, for what that agenda item was for?
This is Leah Rosen, Affordable Housing Administrator. Yeah, although I would suggest that perhaps if anybody would like to go ahead and nominate, like verbally nominate a member or self-nominate, that be provided at this time so that members can have some consideration until action is needed at the next meeting. And then otherwise, that's sufficient for this meeting.
Okay. Any comments?
Would you two enjoy serving again?
I would serve again. I would tell you that next year, at the end of the year, I'm off. My term is up. So next December, my term is up. So, but I would be happy to serve but I'm also happy to step aside if someone else would like to serve as chair.
And I have capacity to be vice chair. And so
Okay.
my commitments, though, wouldn't allow me anything additional beyond that. And so, but also happy for somebody else to have that opportunity, especially working with Monty. But
Oh, how swell. Karen.
I haven't spoken with anyone before this about it, but I would certainly entertain Nicholas Ward for a leadership position if he were interested.
All right. Okay, anything else? Anybody else? All right, we're going to close that item. We'll make, I guess, official nominations next month. Let me see here. Item 5, review and discuss Affordable Housing Trust Fund 2023 Q4 reports. Leah, I'm going to turn that over to you. There was a very nice written report about the projects. I don't know that we need to go over that unless anybody has specific questions.
This is Leah Rosen, Affordable Housing Administrator. The reports are attached to the agenda. I'm happy to pull up my screen and share screen if anyone would like, or take any questions.
No questions? Oh, Karen's got her hand up.
I would be curious to see what the total amount that was allocated from AHAB funds for each of the projects when the reports come up again. I mean, no need to redo this at all, but because, for some of us that are newer board members, it would be exciting to see kind of not just what's been spent, but how much of that is available from AHAB.
Okay. I'm sure we can do that.
This is Leah Rosen, Affordable Housing Administrator. So just to make sure I'm understanding, so moving forward, Karen, you are requesting for just an additional line with their total allocation. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to know like what level we're supporting them at.
Okay, will do. And this might be a future agenda item, but currently, in terms of what they're reporting on quarterly, they don't report on how much has been spent towards the project. They report on progress. And so if the AHAB would like to see in the future how much funds are being spent down quarterly, we can add that to the 2024 report template.
Yeah. Karen, I want to talk to that a little bit. And tell me if I get to where you want to go. What I would think I would want to see is what funding was allocated, and then how much of that funding total to date, as of the report date, had been sent to them from the city, or how much had come out of the trust fund from this, in relation to how much was awarded. How much does that get where you want to go, Karen?
Yes, that would be excellent.
This is Leah Rosen, Affordable Housing Administrator. So just to clarify, the the payments are made in one lump sum.
Okay.
And so, so all the payments from 2023 have been fully allocated and dispersed.
Okay. So on the, like, I'm looking at this DCCA one, it says DCCA has not requested payment. So of their amount, whatever we allocated to them, we've paid nothing. And when we do make that payment, we'll make the whole payment, boom, and it'll be done. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, anything else on that? Okay. They're on to item 6, receive staff recommendation.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, go ahead.
I apologize to interrupt, but I did just want to make a note that Thomas Howell has joined us.
Oh, hey, Thomas, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry I can't be there in person.
We're glad to have you however we get you, Thomas. Okay, item 6, receive staff recommendation to cancel the January 2024 AHAB meeting. After our allocation, last year we canceled our January meeting as well. We just didn't have a lot of business to cover. I gave you a little bit of a break from the holiday. So I would accept a motion to cancel the January 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Tom, is that you, Thomas?
Yes.
Okay, so Thomas moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we've got a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the roll. This would be to cancel, a motion to cancel the January meeting. Karen?
Approve.
Sarah?
Approve.
Nicholas?
Approve.
Philip?
Approve.
Mark?
Approved.
Christina?
Approve.
Erica?
Approve.
Dana?
Approve.
Shannon?
Approve.
Thomas?
Yes.
Monty? Yes. Motion passes 12-0. Thank you. You'll get a break in January. On to item 7. It didn't quite make it in 15, 22. So, not too bad, though. Discuss and come to decision on 2024 Affordable Housing Trust Fund recommendations to the City Commission. Now, I believe at this point we have some people that will need to recuse themselves that are involved in projects. If you would just announce that, just for the record, I'd appreciate it.
This is Shannon Oury with the Housing Authority. I recuse myself.
Dana Ortiz with Family Promise of Lawrence. I recuse myself.
Karen Willie, Douglas County Commissioner. I also recuse myself.
Nicholas Ward, Tenants to Homeowners. I recuse myself. And then Monty, do I need to exit the room for this process based on that?
Yes, any members recusing would need to leave the room.
They would need to leave the room.
Am I able to just be out there, or should I?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Is that all the recusals? I have a substantial interest conflict that I have filed with the county clerk. I have a substantial interest conflict with Burton Ash. I've also learned I have a couple of choices, and that is to vote on nothing or to participate. I guess by law, declaring the substantial interest allows you to participate. I have chosen to participate, not necessarily for the benefit of Burton Ash, but for the benefit of the other projects. This isn't a planning issue where you just recuse yourself and leave the room. This is kind of a collective decision about several projects. So to me, it's a hybrid. It's weird. I don't like doing this. I also believe that if I left the room, we probably wouldn't have a quorum. So I'm somewhat conflicted, but I'm going to participate. It's a very weird situation.
Where does the decision about your, whether or not you are able to participate come, where does that generated from, Mark?
In other words, why do I think I can participate? Did you hear me?
I think you and I have had that conversation, but the question really is, who makes that decision at this point? Leah?
This is Leah Rosen, Affordable Housing Administrator. In terms of approving Mark's participation with the substantial interest, we consulted with the Deputy City Attorney, Randy Larkin. Does that answer your question, Thomas?
Yes, but my question really is it okay for him to stay? I value I really value Mark's perspective and his input, and so I just want to make sure that we are following protocol.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Randy advised that if Mark would like to participate, that he could file the statement of substantial interest, and that would clear him to be able to do so and participate and vote.
All right.
Thank you.
One more comment on all this. So, like this?
Yeah, just leave. He'll take care of this.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No one noticed.
12/31 of this year, my employment arrangement with my company changes, and I will no longer have substantial interest conflicts with anybody that I know of that has made requests in the past, or I don't know about the future, but anyway, I'll still be at CEK, but my employment arrangement changes, and the conflicts will evaporate.
Thank you, Mark, for kind of sharing that and letting us know where that's going. Okay, with that, we are ready to talk about the projects. I would say that I'm looking for which one it is.
Florida, is it? Florida?
No, it's not Florida. Leah, which one? So we had one of the projects pull, and I'm looking on the list here, and I'm like, for whatever reason, I'm not seeing which one it is.
It's not on the current list.
It's not on the list. Okay.
That's the prime companies.
Oh, the prime company. Yeah. So the prime company pulled their application. They had some issues with acquiring the site and getting it zoned correctly and whatever, so they pulled their application. So they're no longer part of the application process. I think we talked about that last time, maybe. So Leah, I think if we could pull up the kind of summary sheet, that'd be a place to start. I guess I would look to the people in the room and on Zoom if there's a specific way, if we want to talk about each one of these projects, or if you want to go straight to the average recommendation and start whittling away at that and talking about the benefits and
Monty?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, I'm sorry, Thomas Howe, Lawrence Gordon, Realtors representative. I'd like to suggest that there's a number of these projects which are of lower amount, which were seemingly everybody voted the same way on them. And so perhaps we could take care of the low-hanging fruit first.
That's a possibility.
However you all want to go.
Would that be?
So Leah, could you pull up the summary sheet that has the projects and the?
Appreciate that.
So that we're looking at that, and then we'll go back to these.
I believe it is. This is Leah Roslin, Affordable Housing Administrator. I believe I'm sharing screen with that. Is everybody able to see that?
You want the spreadsheet?
I want the spreadsheet is what I'm looking for.
Oh, the spreadsheet. Oh, okay. I
The
apologize.
medians and all that stuff. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll bring that up right now.
There you go.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just a couple of notes as we get into this. This is Leah Roslin, Affordable Housing Administrator. A couple notes to the board. I did add, since publishing the agenda, the chair and I met and took a moment to review the spreadsheet, and was requested that we add an average column as well, so that you could see how the average recommendation compares to the median. And then the other note is that I do have the individual board member recommendations and scores in columns that are hidden. If any member of the board would like me to expand those cells so that folks can see how individual members scored or recommended funds, I'm happy to do so. Otherwise, I'll keep them hidden. And then as we move along, I will just insert recommendations here. This column will calculate what is being recommended against what was requested. And then you can see at the bottom of the screen how much funds are remaining available to allocate.
Okay.
This is Sarah Waters. I think as a starting point to come back to what Thomas said, I mean, I think Independence Inc. as well as the Housing Authority absolutely should be fully funded. I was just throwing it out there. I think the work of the collaborative is also critical. It's a huge amount of money, though, and so I don't see it as small, but I think we could go ahead and move it forward at this point, knowing that we've got some huge asks from other projects that I think are extremely critical as well. So those were the three I see on that table, just to name them specifically. And maybe we carve out a little bit from the collaborative, but again, their wait lists, everything that they're doing is, I mean, it's critical work in the community.
As a start, I'd like to propose that I'd like to make a motion that number 7, Independence Inc., their accessibility modification program, as well as the Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority's housing vouchers, be awarded the $75,000 and the $50,000 as recommended there. That would be a motion on my part.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? We've never.
So
this is. I'm just gonna.
Hello, I'm sorry, Nancy.
Go ahead,
hopefully, right. So if we're pushing forward some ones we see want to be fully funded, I want to also include the Housing Stabilization Collaborative, Douglas County, into that as well. I feel like there has been an understanding of how this rental assistance is absolutely necessary, and they should, I feel, continue to be fully funded as long as they're putting in an application. I don't feel as though it's not something that's needed, and there was continual discussion throughout the year about rental assistance and the increase of what that looks like for folks receiving those benefits, both from the Housing Authority and also from places like where Kyle Vett was talking to about the services they provide through Ballard Center. So I'd like to toss that one in as well if we're making a motion to fully fund some of the applicants.
So, Christina, thank you. I appreciate that. However, my motion has to do with the ones which did not have conversation or did not have discussion to follow. And I think that we probably do need to discuss the housing stabilization, whether or not it be fully funded, just because within that average, it's 10% or a little bit more below what the request was for. So I'm not saying that I would object to that. However, for my motion, it's just to move forward with the two which had the medians which were at their ask.
Okay, so where we are procedurally is we have a motion and a second on the floor. We could discuss that. That's to fully fund Independence, Inc. and Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority as requested. What we need to do procedurally is vote on that, and then we can move on to the next. My preference personally, well, let's vote on that, and then we'll move on. So unless there's more discussion on those two, we're gonna call the roll.
Okay.
Okay, and then we'll move on. Okay. Sarah Waters,
Yes.
Phil Englehart,
Yes.
Mark Bueller,
Yes.
Christina Gentry,
Vote yes.
Erica Zimmerman,
Yes.
Thomas Howe,
Yes.
Monty Sokup, yes. Motion passes 7-0. So those two are done. Now we can move on. My preference would probably be to fill out the entire thing so we know how the thing balances, because there will be a little movement back and forth based on different arguments. It's nice that we're in agreement on these two, but I'm not sure on the rest we're going to be in agreement. And I'd hate to vote on one at a time or two at a time and eliminate opportunity to have discussion. So with that, I will open it up. Sounds like maybe Housing Authority might be a good place to start.
I think
Agreed.
so.
Hey, Jesse.
So we've heard a couple people. Last year, I'm going to jive in there. Last year they were funded at $350,000, which was above their request. I might suggest that we fund them at 400. My reason is it's important. All of these are important. It does not create permanent or long-term temporary housing. I'm not saying we don't need to help people, because we do. But this fund purpose was to create affordable housing. And this is a great program. I'm not anything against the program. I get concerned. We keep creeping and creeping and creeping, and we generate $1 million a year. That's what we have $3 million this year, but we create $1 million a year in funding. And if you spend half of it on temporary stabilization, 1 or 2 months for many people, I just don't think that's the right direction for what this thing is, and that's where I sit.
This is Phil Englehart, and I've asked this question since this is my first year on the board. I've asked it, and I know you all have discussed it ad nauseum, but perhaps in February or March or something like that, we can come to some consensus view, whether it requires input from city administration or whatever, about how big the buckets are going to be. I know it's difficult, and I know you all have discussed it, but I wasn't there during those discussions, and I sure would feel better if we knew going into it that it was 2/3 this and 1/3 that. I know you guys have discussed it, but maybe like in February or March of next year, we can bring it back up again. That's all I would say.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have, this is my, obviously, first year as well. And I agree that it doesn't put units on the ground. I think the appetite for this project is insatiable, meaning they could use $1 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my opinion about awarding this limit, this amount, would be different if we had $1 million. And I think we have $3 million because over time, and I'll stand corrected, over time we funded some projects that didn't get funded, that didn't get completed. Mm-hmm. So we have a little bit of a surplus, and we run the risk with some of the other ones we're going to talk about that although we'd like them to happen, they won't because of factors outside our control. But, and wasn't a part of overfunding him last year, but my attitude about the need, if we had $1 million, I'd have a different attitude, but we have $3 million. And I would support fully funding their request at this level, knowing all the reasons why this conflicts with putting units on the ground. So it's just my opinion.
Yeah.
This is Christina Gentry. Mark Bueller, I think we agree on this at this point. I want to also speak on the survey demographics. I feel like the Housing Stabilization Collaborative does a lot of the data work that we would like to have done. It does a collection. It's in time, in real time. And these supports, though we understand they're not putting units on the ground, they're keeping people housed, and they're keeping utility costs and the things that we know that are barriers to eliminate some of that discussion that goes on into a household where it says, well, we can't afford to keep our lights on or keep food in the house. So what we're doing, in essence, I feel, is eliminating there to be more houseless individuals, houseless families, because we're providing supports they need to stay housed. There also was some talk about an eviction diversion coordinator. So I think the Housing Stabilization Collaborative is doing that work that we need done, collecting the data that we need to have is understanding who is in special needs or who has these needs. They also do an absolutely fantastic job in completing the application as far as what we're wanting to do as far as racial equity work. We don't have anybody currently serving and supporting that data for us. And in our small subgroups, we've been trying to work group into what our goals look like for AHAB. One of them being to provide and to increase racial equity in housing opportunities. I think moving with continuing to support the Housing Collaborative or Stabilization Collaborative is helping us do our work and our due diligence to hold tight to some of the goals that we have created for ourselves in AHAB. So the strategies we're in, I feel, are in alignment with our process, and to fund them at capacity, I think would be the best recommendation I could give to continue that work that we're not always able to do in our smaller work groups, but also just for the continuation of the city supports that we know are definitely needed to keep people housed.
This is Phil Englehart, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying. But if you look down the road to reauthorization of the sales tax increment, if we're going to fund the stabilization collaborative at these levels, then when the marketing pitch comes out for this is why we need to, reauthorize the sales tax increment, then we better be in a position to make in short, snappy sentences what this accomplishment is, not in long things that have all the details of what they've done, but I don't even know if I'm making sense, but I'm just trying to look ahead, because I think many people in the community who are outside of these going-ons, don't have the perception of AHAB as a support agency, but rather one that puts units on the ground. So again, I'm not opposed to the request, and I understand where you all are coming from, and I'm good with it. But I do think that we need to be thinking ahead in that respect. And I'll shut up. Thank you.
Well, my pitch would be that we are preventing the list of need from growing. That would be my pitch. Yeah. I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we can do it,
yeah.
All right, I'm going to make just a suggestion, and then we'll see where this. I'm going to suggest we put it on at 450, talk about some of these other things, come back and reevaluate. Not as a final number, but put it on at 450. Let's get a placeholder. Mm-hmm. And then let's talk about some of these others, and maybe there's another $100,000 to put at it, and maybe there's not. I don't know. We'll argue over that.
Sure.
Does that sound like a reasonable way to move forward?
Yep.
Sounds great.
I'm good with it. Okay. Let's just move up the list. It seems to be the thing to do. 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church project. The request is $850. Our average is around $530. Median's $425.
So if I might discuss this just a little bit here, this one gives me a little heartburn because essentially we are being asked to cover the lion's share of this cost. Not an awful lot of leverage going into this. 6 units being developed out of it. I have some challenges with this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the need. I understand the value of having that partnership, but I'd like to see some more skin in the game.
I feel similar to Thomas Howell. I like this project in that it's innovative and different. It's coming from a different contractor and development team than that we've seen before. And I feel like it should be funded, but I don't know at 100% I would be comfortable with.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with either of those numbers there, the average or the median. Either it's lower or it's much higher. Because when you look at that project and it's 2 units and 4 units, and if you're going to, as Thomas said, if you're going to carry the lion's share of the water, you can't do 4 units at 4 1/4 or probably even 531. And I think you can do 2 units at something considerably less than 531 or 4 1/4, given that they already own the property. That's my perspective. Is that those 2 numbers are right in the middle of 2 units and 4 units, and it doesn't. Scale-wise, it doesn't line up from my perspective.
Yeah.
Did anybody learn anything at the presentation that without these funds it could be built anyway? I don't recall that.
No, I didn't.
I think
I didn't hear that.
as I recall, it was scalable. They could do the 2-unit thing or the 4-unit thing, but not really anything in between. So
Gotcha.
I kind of agree with a lot of what's been said, and I kind of broke this down and I said it's about $140,000 per unit that they're seeking if you divide it up by 6. If we did 2 units, it'd be about $280,000. This is a first-time project for this group. 2 units might be a good way to start, you know. Taking on 6 might be a lot for this group.
Is the 2 detached, or is it making
2 and 4? It's a
4-plex?
2-unit and a 4-unit complex.
Okay, and
So it was
an existing
naturally broke
fourplex,
up.
right? An existing 4-plex on their site. They own that, I believe.
I don't recall.
You don't? Okay, but if we funded 2, there'd be a duplex somewhere, right? Is that our thinking?
My understanding is that there are 2 new structures.
Okay.
A duplex, and a fourplex.
Okay, then I'm cogging with you there.
That's the way I
looked at it.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I might suggest that to try to put in a unit of $280,000 is a big challenge. Construction costs, and I'm sorry that our Home Builders Association member is not here with us today, because I think that even they own the ground, it doesn't matter. It's going to be a challenge.
Well, that is the subsidy. That's not the entire budget. That's the subsidy they were asking for, was $140 per unit.
So you believe
I'm not saying that's the total construction cost.
Somewhere.
No.
You believe
there's some in their proposal. There's some donations and whatnot elsewhere.
And Thomas, when you look at those numbers, part of those, you know, if you do it on a square foot basis, part of it is land cost. And the organization, the equity capital that they're putting in is that they already own the property. And I looked at the floor plans and all like that. They're not particularly large units, and if you already own the property, I mean, ballpark-wise, I mean, $170K or something per unit ought to do it, I think. I mean, and I'll shut up, but I made my points. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I guess I'll throw out a recommendation at 280 as, again, a number to put in there as we kind of fill these out to see where we are, and then we haggle over where we end up. I like the project.
Thank you.
This is an organization that has been in our community for a long time and has done some incredible work, and this is kind of their first foray into building units. In my book, they're worth a shot. Not an $850,000 shot, but they're worth a shot. And I think they'll do great work. So, Floret Hill. I didn't mean to cut anybody off, but I'm just going to try to get us worked through here.
That's great.
Floret Hill, new development. Had a request at 1.6. Kind of our average was basically right around $1 million. I like this project. There's obviously the city's invested some in the property that was given. That given land has some pretty significant clawback features where the value of the land will not be lost if this project sells 30 years from now after the tax credit period. The value of that land will come back.
Are you comfortable with the off-site that they're kind of hoping that something will come? And are you, I don't want to get in the middle of their deal with my fingers, but I would like that to get developed as a supportive like interest.
Right.
But they don't lose the ground in the deal.
Right. Based on conversations, I'm comfortable. I don't know that is papered at this point. So I think that could be a asterisk on the gift that land needs to, ultimately benefit the project and not be a for-profit entity for the developer.
You're talking about the commercial property?
The commercial property.
Yeah. The parcel.
The value of that, either whether that's the rent or the whatever, or that needs to somehow value or come to the affordability, because that's how the land was acquired.
One more comment, as I've watched you think about budgeting all this money, which I appreciate your experience. You think they could do it if they got 800? I mean,
yeah, I think most of these projects, again, in this case, they own the land. So if they had 800, it would probably get done. Would it be a few less units, or would it be scaled somehow? Probably.
Okay.
I think that's fairly typical of most of those projects, unless you're like building a single house.
Right.
And then it's hard to scale. It's
kind of like the
making the whole thing smaller.
Kind of like the 9th Street Baptist.
But
well, that's just a thought.
Yeah.
This is Sarah Waters. I would just like to advocate strongly for this project, also with almost the highest score. I mean, it depends on if you're looking at average or median here. And really, I think meets everything we're looking for. And so I think we're going to have to make some tough decisions here. And I'm not currently a fan of giving partial to some.
Right.
And just, half and half. I think there's an incredible struggle. I think the cost of construction, as we heard in the proposals, is out of control. And so I worry about doing a half here. I would go at least $1 million for it, frankly. Especially knowing that there is in today's agenda about the commercial property that will go back to the project, or I think that's how it's stated. So hopefully they can get a revenue stream there from a commercial property. That's how I'm looking at that.
So are you recommending $1 million?
I would recommend $1 million on this one. Mark said half, and I just feel like it should be, I guess I only gave $200,000 more.
I got you.
So, I even higher potentially, but there's just outstanding projects here we still need to talk about.
Yeah.
It's hard to take care of all the kids.
It is.
Right?
So,
it is.
Knowing next year we're not going to have
anywhere near this money.
And
yeah.
Asking somebody to come back next year is going to be really hard, and I think some of them are going to need to.
Good point.
Is
that a recommendation?
I'm at $1 million if we were going to plug a number in right now as something, if not higher, but I don't know that higher makes sense right now.
I'd second that.
So, and it's just a rec. We're not doing the motion or anything yet.
Right. All right, we okay on that one? for now? Want to move on to, okay.
Just one further clarification. Before any, it sounds like you all release money in lump sums, but all the language relative to that commercial parcel, that'll all be squared away and tight and...
Yeah, so these guys essentially sign a development agreement with the city.
Right.
That has the funding, how the funding's coming, what they have to deliver. So there is a, yeah.
Okay.
It's papered fairly well. Okay, Flint Hills Holdings LLC, New Hampshire Street Lofts. And we have the applicant here. If there are questions for the applicant, we can certainly engage them. So.
Well, looking at the average and the median, I wanted to fully fund that. I know the reasons the costs are up is because the costs are up and the costs are up. But I think this is a project that can happen, should happen, and I'd like to see it happen. So I would lobby for a higher limit than what we have averaged and medianed. So, but I don't know where everybody else was on that.
Yeah.
So Mark, what number would you plug in there? What would your
300
Totally. Get it across the finish line. That's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, let's go.
And so again, so what I said about Floret with the scores, but on this one, I do think should be funded. And so I thought a minimum of 200, if not the full, as Mark is recommending, just to get it done.
Yeah.
Because it was an outstanding project, and we've heard about it before, and we need it to get built.
Yeah,
so that people can get moved in.
We previously.
I wouldn't disagree that we plug in the 300,000. And then if we need to come back, we can, but let's just see what that looks like.
Okay. East Hills, or Flint Hills Holdings, East Heights Family Housing. So the average was 787 with the median 900.
So, Mr. Chair, this is Sarah Waters. You know I like doing this too. I wonder if on scores we need to talk about Burton Ash first. Or together, because I mean, there's $829,000 remaining and 1.7 million in request there. And because the Burton Ash was almost my top in terms of getting that going. And so I'm worried about not funding that close to the full amount, frankly. And so just throwing that out there. Or we can just talk specifically about Flint Hills. Your East Heights, the East Heights project.
So I
just throw it out there, however you want.
Right, no, I certainly understand. I think we're going to have to come back and revisit most of these at some point. For the East Heights, there's some things I really love about this project. And then there's some things I really don't love about this project. I'm struggling personally with essentially funding the purchase of the ground that then ultimately benefits the developer to be sold at the end of a project. So it's not permanent, and we're essentially buying the ground to buy 30 years of, we're spending $1 million basically for what we're asked to do to get 30 years of affordability on most of this. Of protection. So, and if we're okay with that, that's okay. I struggle with that. I would rather see this somehow so that the value, I'm not saying not funded, I'm saying I would like to see it somehow kind of like we did with Floret Hills, where we said, look, that development ground has to benefit the project. I'm going to say this land, if we're buying the land, it has to benefit the project. So at the end of the 30 years, we have some kind of ROFO or something that allows us to get that value back at the end. If the developer cashes out, sells the property, we get that money back to spend at that point, or the value of that ground back somehow, or have a right to get it. That's what would push me over the top on this project. but there's other things about it that I just are fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
I applaud you guys for coming together with this. The structure was, and I guess I would ask if that's even a possibility.
Tony's pictures him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding that conversation, I actually learned of this, not strategy, but conversation about putting affordable housing project into the land bank, a project that's using tax credits. And there's several reasons why this never happens or is extremely rare. But the first one I think that we need to understand just from a practicality standpoint is a for-profit development or a nonprofit development, the developer fee, the goal, the land use restriction agreement, it's all the exact same. And so there's a lot of confusion there. Regarding a tax credit project specifically that involves a syndicator or a tax credit broker or tax credit investor, they would never agree to not having any upside or the ability to re-syndicate a project at the end of the affordability period without a damaging hit to the project. A for-profit developer or a nonprofit developer, in the case of East Heights, somebody that's asked to sign $20 million personal guarantee, if you go into your projects like we do and you defer the maximum amount of developer fee, who would ever defer potentially all of their developer fee, making $0 on developer fee, signing a $20 million personal guarantee without any upside? I think that the last thing that, that I try to explain to people when this comes up, and it's come up more and more often, is that permanent affordable housing, especially in the Midwest here in the flyover states, unless it's single family home ownership, it can have and oftentimes has a more damaging effect on the community in the neighborhood than a benefit to the community or neighborhood in absence of home ownership, like the great work Tenants to Homeowners does. I don't want to put words in Tenants to Homeowners' mouth. I believe that they would agree with what I'm saying here. In terms of tax credit developments, which by the way is where the vast majority bang for the buck occurs on a national level, does not mend well with, hey, sign a $20 million personal guarantee. I sure hope that your numbers come in way lower than you benefited from. And if not, thanks for playing. You are now a nonprofit by default. Doesn't happen. The other very, very important piece to this is what happens at the end of 30 years? What happens at 25 years? What happens in 20 years? These projects need to be renovated anyway, right? And so that's when the re-syndication conversation takes place. Polar Lofts, I think everybody in this room knows about Polar Lofts. It's 12 years old. We're already talking about re-syndicating that project, right? And you need the resources, I guess what I'm saying, to be able to re-syndicate these projects. From a practical standpoint, I'll also ask, does anybody in this room want Polar Lofts to be guaranteed to be affordable in the year 2075? We don't have a clue what Lawrence, Kansas is going to look like in 2075, right? And so the unintentional consequence that happens many times when tax credit projects are asked to do something like this is the developer walks away, the syndicator puts damaging limitations on a project, or it doesn't get done, right? What I can't say, land bank aside, permanent affordability aside, as I can also speak to the right of first refusal or the ROFR in this situation. I also wanted to clarify, East Heights is not asking the city to buy the land. If that was somehow in an application or somebody misunderstood me, I just wanted to clarify that we are asking for money, no different than any other project, for-profit or non-for-profit. We're not asking for you guys to buy the land, okay? That is going to be a source of funds that is one of about $20 million worth of uses of funds, understanding that sources of funds and uses of funds balance on every single project, right? The right of first refusal, though, is a little bit different. And if the community, which again, the land bank that is not directly tied to AHAB and is not tied to the city, if a development was asked to give a right of first refusal to the land bank, I think that would probably need to legally be figured out because those aren't related parties. But just for speaking purposes, let's say, hey, 30 years is not enough for affordability. We want more than that, or we want a right of first refusal. At that point in time, I think that a tax credit investor would be okay if they knew what the wording looked like, giving a right of first refusal so long that it was to an unrelated party, meaning unrelated to the limited partner or to the general partner. And at that point, Mr. Chair, I did want to just clarify, there's no guarantee that a right of first refusal would be won or even chose to be bidded on by this body 30 years from now.
Right.
You would just have
It's just a right.
the option, or another way, and my suggestion would be, in the event that the property is formally marketed, meaning that it's not going to go to the limited partner or to the general partner, that you ask to be on an exclusion list, right? So that you would by default have the right of first refusal. But that was just a suggestion. Again, for-profit or non-for-profit going into a land bank on a tax credit development, very, very unlikely, as well as a right of first refusal. The right of first refusal would probably be doable, but just in full transparency, I don't really know what that gets you aside from the guarantee first look, if that makes sense, in the event that 30 years after the last syndication, the limited partner and the general partner don't choose to do something with it themselves. Most likely re-syndication would be the option, because if you're a tax credit developer such as myself, and 30 years from now I decide that I'm going to take that project market rate, which, by the way, is really, really good for a lot of communities when that happens. But if I decided to do that, then guess what? I need not apply again at the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation, because I lose so many points on my next application if I take a project through what's called the qualified contract, that the application is essentially dead on arrival.
Okay, you said a whole bunch, and I've got several questions. When you take a project like Polar, and let's say it needs renovation now, is the new project a tax credit project and the other one gets paid off? Is it like refinancing?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we're in year 11 of the initial compliance period, Mark. We signed up for what's called an extended use agreement, which is an additional 15 years, totaling 30 years. The Polar Lofts that needs, I think, $260,000 of tuck pointing work, and I should have probably applied to this body to help out with some of that. That $270,000 of work.
I can imagine.
It adds up nonstop, right? And so that project, it fit 4 years from now, or at the end of 15 years, once that initial compliance period is over with, we will re-syndicate or reapply for additional tax credits, not only to take care of the tuck pointing, the roof, HVAC systems,
right,
but these projects need to be renovated, and they don't last 30 years.
Will it still have an affordability component in it then?
Not only will it still have an affordability component in it then, the affordability period will start over.
So it'll be another 30.
That's exactly right.
So just because we have a 30-year claim, the world has a 30-year claim to affordability, doesn't mean that it won't be affordable for longer. It just means it's your call, not our call, number one, which there's always a philosophical argument there.
Right.
And to your point about small communities, I can speak personally to small communities in Kansas that established these projects in the 70s, and they have tried to maintain them and have all kinds of rules. And I do write some insurance on those kinds of properties. They are not in good condition, and they are serving some very poor people. There's no question about that. But in terms of the project itself, they've got issues, and they struggle. And of course, with insurance rates up, it's awful. But anyway, I'm done. I've got 100 more, but we don't have time for that.
You're exactly right. And the last thing I'd say is specifically to rural Kansas affordability, where I've done probably as much, if not more, than anybody in the state. If you ask for more, That's perfectly fine. There needs to be money to be set aside to figure that problem out, right? And you're 30, 31, 32, and if that problem isn't figured out, but there's a string tied to it, there's a restriction, good luck on the syndicator, good luck on the bank getting it done.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate that input. Other questions? Comments? Anybody got a number in mind for those last two slots? or this slot?
Why don't we come back to this one, take on the Burt Nash project?
All right. Anybody opposed to that?
I'm good with that.
Okay, let's go to Burt Nash.
I need a referee here because what I'd like to do is be quiet about this one. Let you all make determinations on that. I'd be most comfortable about that. So I will try to keep my mouth shut. Maybe I go.
Good luck, Mark.
Bathroom break.
All right. I like this project. Obviously, it serves some of the highest need people we have with supportive housing. Given the size of this project, it's not a huge ask, given the overall size. So I'd like to see us fund this, close to the high end of that, close to their maybe 400 or 450 or something. That's my gut feeling. I'd like to open it up for anybody else who wants to.
Well, Phil Englehart, I wrote my comments out here, and I don't have any problem with 400 or whatever, but if the general information that we've received at the presentations is correct, and that the $12 million is really, the residential side of that is $6 million, then if you divide 24 units into that, then you get $250K a unit. And I know these are all gross numbers and they're all stupid and all like that, but $250K a unit I think is too much. And I think that they need to try to practice some cost containment, so that now granted, there's not going to be a lot of money next year and all like that, but to come back and ask for more money next year and attribute it to escalating construction costs or whatever it might be, when you're already talking about $250K a unit, I'm not. That doesn't set well with me. So, but I'm not opposed to the median number or the full number or something like that. But I think there needs to be an understanding transmitted to the organization that it seems on the surface that these numbers are too high, and that you ought to work towards, to use your term, scaling. And I don't mean in terms of number of units, scaling in terms of whatever it takes to bring those units in at a lower number. Said my piece.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Just one thing I would say about probably every unit that they make will be fully ADA accessible, which is not the case for most apartment buildings. And so that's going to be a little higher. I'm not justifying 250, but they would have some additional expense with that. I mean, it just takes extra square feet to do. Other thoughts?
All right. I think that this project should be funded at the ask, but I do have had concerns in the past on some of the Burt Nash projects and their budget control. And so I thought that this proposal was well done and one of the better ones they've done. So I feel that, again, they're learning a lot as they've gone down this path. So I think this should be funded, and I would put the full 450 down, personally. But I don't see them getting any more funding for this project next time. Okay. So that would be where I would be at this point.
So what do we put in the box?
I would also support full funding for this program or for this project in that it is providing some units that we aren't funding. Sorry, I'm looking through the numbers really quick just to make sure that I'm not incorrect.
Oh.
But it's
They're units
a type
that
of
can't
unit that,
be built on the market.
Right.
yeah.
Market.
And for our specific housing need in the stabilization and supportive housing.
All right, so Leah, if we put 450 in there, where's that leave us on the rest? 380, basically. So that would basically leave us at, well, 379 is the actual number that would be in the Flint Hills available for East Heights, short of shifting some stuff around, which I'm suggesting we take a look at.
Am I incorrect in that the East Heights project is the only project that doesn't have the land secured?
I believe so.
Okay. I think that's something to look at as well. It feels very preliminary in timing.
That's also where my mindset was, and having to make a hard decision here. I also think the East Heights proposal just wasn't quite as thorough, and there were some discrepancies in there, and we tried to work those out. And there's a lot up in the air still, and I really appreciate what Tony said here.
Very insightful.
And I still think we've got other projects that need the funds. So knowing we only have, 379 left, I would recommend zeroing out on East Heights at this point and moving those funds to some of the other projects to get them closer to their ask. And that really is very hard for me to say. And funds aren't unlimited here. But because the land isn't there yet,
Yeah.
I think it makes it really.
That's the only reason.
It's still very, very up in the air.
Right.
With a really cool concept, that childcare piece in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's some of that. That was amazing to see.
I would support moving those funds either into the Hope project or into the Floret Hill project.
You got a number to? I don't know.
Or
I'll say the number, Erica. Or
Okay.
I would say go ahead and put the 280 to 300, and then put the balance into Floret. Would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
And so hopefully the Hope project could get that duplex built on that 300 based on the math some of you had done on that, and then just give the balance to Floret.
Floret.
To get them up a little bit.
Support that as well.
Because yeah, I mean, the other thing that, again, if somebody want to bring up, it would be adding more to the collaborative out of that instead of, so.
So I'm a little unclear here. We have 379 remaining. Are we talking about just moving the Hope project up to 300,000, or are we talking about adding 300,000, making it 580?
No,
and then putting
Making it 300.
Making it 300. So there you go, Leah.
And then whatever's left, adding to Floret Hill.
Can I ask a question? Which of these two projects, the East Heights Family Housing Project and the Floret Hill Project, do you think would be most likely to rise up out of the ground in the next 30 months?
What was the other one you said?
The Floret Hill project. They already have the property which the city has given them through tenants, as opposed to the East Heights where they don't have control of the, but that notwithstanding, I mean, and I don't have any idea, but I do know from the conversations that I have in the community with people that there is a fraction of the community that wants to see houses on the ground now. You know, they read in the Journal World and the Lawrence Times about all of the issues that we have with housing. And I know, just in my limited experience, I know it takes a long time, but they want to see evidence now. Not 2.5, 3, 4 years down the road. They want to see it now.
Do you think Florent Hill can survive on $1 million?
I don't have any, that's outside my expertise. I have no idea.
Well, if they're $1.3 million, let's just use that as a round number, $1.3 million on a $34 million project is doable. $300,000 on 1% on a $34 million project is something that's trimmable.
Well, and find a good deal on your commercial property then.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot in the air with that commercial property.
I think they got choices without us increasing their funding. I'd like us to do something for the East Heights project. It may not happen, it may come back to us, but concept is, wow, if you could infill that site in 20 years, we'd all be really happy about it. They're all good projects. So
yeah, they are.
They're all good projects, and we lost a good project we're not even having to consider here today.
Yeah.
Which also, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the other thing I'll say about Florida is we are west of Iowa on that, and so let's not lose sight of that.
Which was a priority for the board.
Which was a priority.
But it's reflected in the scores.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Which is why I would advocate to put that money there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sort of with Mark in the sense that, if you got $34 million, I mean, what's giving them another $350,000 really going to do to a $34 million project? But since I don't have any.
It's less time and energy going to find that $350,000.
Okay, I got you.
It is.
Yeah, I can't comment. I don't know enough to say, so.
Could you help me with our intent on west of Iowa? Encouraging that? Are we teaching those folks that live west in Iowa a lesson, or are we?
No, we're trying to distribute affordable.
I've been a
trying
smart
to
ass.
distribute affordable housing throughout the community.
Okay.
And if you look at where we have been able to do projects, it has almost all been east of Iowa.
Yeah.
That has also come at the direction of the city commission.
Yeah.
I just, if we were king or queen and we were redeveloping our community without all these inferences, we would probably want to do more east of Iowa, because you could argue that the quality of housing in those areas over time with the age in many cases needs redevelopment. But
yeah, and
I also understand.
that's why it's occurred over there primarily, because of the existing housing stock and availability of lots.
Yeah.
It's not that somebody's concentrated. That's where opportunity, when a lot in West Lawrence is $60,000 and a lot in East Lawrence is $30,000.
Yeah.
We're looking for that $300,000. Try to make the biggest go of it, and that's where this opportunity with East Hill or East Heights. It's a redevelopment opportunity that's occurring on the older part of town. So that's why it's naturally occurred over there. And that's just the fact. It has naturally occurred there. So what we've done is said we need to make it more naturally occur on the other side as well, and try to encourage that and highlight that. Again, when we went through the point system, it's, it's 5 points or something.
Right.
It's not like it swings the pendulum a long way.
Agreed.
It's one component of 30 or 40 components. So, all right, well, I would
Christina Gentry.
Yeah.
I want to kind of chime in here. And I know that we have Tony Kirsch in the building, and I know that we've also zeroed out on his request asked for the East Heights. I would feel comfortable moving and recommending the medium recommendation for the new development and New Hampshire Street Lofts. My reason for that is that this came across to the PIRC as well, asking for tax incentives, and that the recommendation was to fully fund them there. But there were so many questions. One was, is this a elderly or a 65 and older, or 55 and older, whatever that definition of elderly housing was, what if that was the goal to place our elderly in care there? There was also a push for there being some structures that allowed for playgrounds. And then there's also a parking structure that was mentioned, that there wouldn't be too much parking available, or the amount of parking that would be available would not meet the guests that they were taking into their space. There's also a top part of the building that was going to be utilized for some kind of social engagement. I think is probably more for the people who were living there to have an entertainment spot. But maybe Monty could speak a little bit more on that, since that was his influence in that conversation. But there was this, to me, not a very clear adaptation of who we were serving in that space of the New Hampshire Street Lofts, how they were going to be able to space themselves in there with no parking. It was just a lot of more questions than answers to. And I feel like Tony has talked a lot. Maybe this is not the time to ask more questions. I don't feel like there is. But I would feel comfortable moving that medium recommendation to 150 and then pushing the Housing Stabilization Collective to get the remainder.
Just exploded that.
So,
Christine, this is Sarah. I'm confused by what you just requested. So are you saying remove? So can you?
New Hampshire.
Take the zero out New Hampshire?
To 150.
No, not to zero it out. There's a medium. I'm looking at the older, but I'm not able to see the in real time. Sure. But the older medium recommendation was 150,000. I would say that I feel comfortable recommending 150,000. If we could push it to 200, that would be fine. But the remainder, we're still at the Housing Stabilization Collaborative is not at its full recommendation, and that's my priority. I feel like they should be fully supported. I think I've said that twice now. So if we could talk a little bit about that New Hampshire Street Lofts new development, if we had any questions about that, which I think there was lots of questions about that during our last meeting, but to not fully fund them at 300,000, to scaffold that down to the 150 medium, and then to place the 100,000, or I'm sorry, the math is a little wrong, maybe 75 to the Housing Stabilization Collaborative.
Okay, so
I'd like to apologize. I'm gonna leave for about 5 minutes, but I will be back. So either we can vote immediately or we can wait until I return because of the quorum issue, but I've got to go right now, but I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll wait 5 minutes. We're going to continue on, but we won't vote for 5 minutes.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, can I make a request?
Yeah.
So, because Christina just changed gears on us, which totally understand, and absolutely we need to talk about that. I think we were still in conversation about what to do with the 359,000 remaining.
Right.
So,
right.
So can we stay on that and then go back to, because Christina's basically asking to remove money from New Hampshire to move it to the collaborative.
Right.
Yeah.
And absolutely we can discuss that, but let's keep going with the
359.
of where's that going?
Yeah.
Because I still,
Right.
you guys said
So
you
I-
would give
yeah.
something to East Heights. I
I'd
propose
like it to
not.
remain where it is.
So-
That's my recommendation.
So let's
The East Heights project.
let's go back. Let's go back to 300 on East Heights. Okay. Let's go back to that. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I apologize, on East Heights or on New
I'm
Hampshire?
sorry. New Hampshire. I'm sorry.
Put that back in. Okay.
Sorry. So let's talk about the 359 that we have.
Right now, you've already moved.
We've moved it. We've moved it to Floret Hills, but I'm not. I'd like to suggest maybe that becomes 1.3, and we move 59 of that to the housing stabilization. So Floret becomes 1.3, and the housing stabilization becomes
Whatever the
509 or whatever it is, as a way to move that. Then add 59 to the housing stabilization. This is what I might suggest. I'm up for discussion.
Understand.
I'm not comfortable. Part of that is me. I get it. I would like, I think it's okay if we have strong feelings about moving more to housing stabilization. I'm not willing to take it out of New Hampshire at this point.
Nor am I.
I couldn't support that. New Hampshire's a project that's ready to go. It's going to be a great project in a great location, a highly sought after location for regular housing, let alone affordable. I think it's an important project.
I watched the meeting in October for your discussion about, some people had some questions about the parking and all that, and I think I heard in the presentation that, we have an attitude about who the parents are of children, and well, many times they're the grandparents. And the world's different in a lot of ways. So I didn't have any problem with the parking. And the rooftop thing, again, I think it's kind of cool, and I don't think it's excessive. So I think 300 in that project ought to happen.
So realizing that that's 600 for this project based on a previous allocation.
I understand.
So that's, we've helpfully help fund this project.
Yes.
My corporate memory is narrow. My memory is narrow.
So I'm just trying to I keep good, I get it. There's some unknowns about that project. I don't think that's a reason to stop it or to try to. Any thoughts on this? Does that get part of where you were trying to go, Christina?
Hold on, there we go. So I'm going to also apologize. I'm looking at two different screens.
Oh.
There was a 359,000 remainder we were talking about, and in my mind, we had already like almost zeroed out. So I'm looking at our 2024 housing recommendations as it stands, but I'm also toggling between that and my cell phone to see the live inputs of numbers. So where I was thinking is that we are almost to a zero balance, and I wanted to push towards having more with the HSC. So that's my bad. I'm looking at two different screens, so I
that's
can't
okay.
what's called. But yes, I'm okay, and I feel comfortable with our median recommendation for the Hampshire lofts. But if we're talking about having more money than I thought was available right now, totally continue what we're talking about pushing those and keeping that at the 300,000, or not taking away from the street lofts, as it were, because my mind was in a different space number-wise. So I apologize for that.
That's okay. So right now we are at Burton Ash at 450, Flint Hills at 0, East Heights, I'm sorry, at 0. New Hampshire at 300, Floret Hill at 1.3, Hope at 300, accessible housing program at 75, that's already established, housing stabilization at 509,000, and New Horizon at 50, and that zeroes out our balance.
Thank you for that clarity, Monty. This is Christina Gentry. I'm comfortable with that number.
All right. We close?
Well, I'm just out of curiosity, I don't know if you have the figures, Leah, that you could do it quickly, but the 2022 awards, how much of that went to the Housing Stabilization Cooperative as a percentage of the total awards? How much was there in 2022 that went to supportive services versus build, and how does that compare to what we have here for 2023? If that, hopefully that question makes sense. It does in my mind.
That does make sense. This is Leah Roslin, Affordable Housing Administrator. I'm pulling up the spreadsheet, so give me just a moment, please. So in 2022, the Housing Stabilization Collaborative was awarded $300,000. And there was a little over $1 million that was allocated that year.
So that's 30%?
Almost 30%.
Okay.
But
well,
you need the other projects as well then.
No, she did, you divided by the total allocation. 300,000 divided by 1 point.
But Phil just asked about supportive services. Was nobody else doing supportive services awarded?
There were.
There were.
There were, because I would
Housing
say
Authority probably got, yeah.
Habitat, System Repair, Independence Inc.,
Yeah.
those are all supportive.
That was your question.
That was really my question, yes. I mean, I'm just trying to understand what's been done in the past and what's being proposed.
Yeah, it was considerably more,
350.
because we're, if you look at just
And Independence Inc., 50.
29, you're 30% versus this award would be around 16.
It's 40%.
So last year we were at
almost double,
40% plus, and this year you're at, with Independence Inc. and the housing stabilization and the emergency vouchers and all like that, you're at what percentage?
Leah Roslin, Affordable Housing Administrator. Just to clarify, the Independence Inc. is not a supportive service. That's accessibility modification. So it would be just Housing Stabilization Collaborative and the Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority.
Okay, I'm good with that definition, Leah. That's fine. Okay. As long as we're consistent year to year, I'm all right with however you all want to define it.
So 23% last year.
Yeah. 23% last year.
Get it right.
Well,
So I think, Phil, this is Sarah Waters. I think what you're getting at is just trying to make a bucket here. Yeah.
I can't live without definition.
I know.
Okay.
And so I think one of the things that also would have to be looked at if you're looking for a formulaic piece here is what the percentage of the proposals in related to what was supportive services versus what was actual building at housing or Independence Inc., however you wanted to do that. And so, and this is by far the most projects we've ever seen since I've been on the board doing this. So
of all kinds.
Of all kinds. Of all kinds. So I don't know that there's a bucket formula here, Phil, that is going to easily come out from anything being pulled from the last couple of years, because there's more than one.
Yeah, and we're also in a pandemic.
Yeah, there's more than one thing that would have to be looked at to make that data statistically relevant.
Yeah, there were really strong arguments during the pandemic about keeping people housed.
Okay. I won't waste any more time on that.
No, it's really critical.
We're going to put a bucket over your head, Phil.
It's really critical, and it's more complicated often than just writing a quick formula.
Yeah.
Because of all this.
Ready?
Okay, so let's go back. Yeah, I'm ready. If we're ready for, someone's ready to make a motion. Leah, can you go back to where we were with the proposed allocations?
This is Erica Zimmerman, Lawrence Habitat. I move that we accept the recommendations. Leah, do you want me to read them for the record? Or the recommendations that are on the screen?
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Hold on just a second. Let me move this on my, sorry, I should have been more prepared. I move that we recommend funding for Burt Nash Community Mental Health Center and their supportive and rehabilitative project at $450,000. Flint Hills Holdings LLC and their New Hampshire Street Lofts project at $300,000. Floret Hill and their Floret Hill project at $1.3 million. 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church and their Hope project at $300,000. Independence Inc. and their Accessible Housing Program project at $75,000. Douglas County and their Housing Stabilization Collaborative at $509,000, and Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority New Horizon project at $50,000.
Thank you for that motion. Do I have a second?
I second that motion. Thomas Howe.
Okay. Any discussion on this motion? All right, I will read the roll. Sarah Waters.
Yes.
Bill Englehart.
Yeah.
Mark Bueller.
Aye.
Christina Gentry.
Yes.
Erica Zimmerman.
Yes.
Thomas Howe.
Yes.
Monty Sokup, approved. Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations. Thank you for your hard work on that. The next on the agenda is the calendar. I'm not going to read those, so I'm going to let you review that yourself. We have
Mr. Chair.
things coming up.
Mr. Chair, I did not see a place on the calendar for new business, or on the agenda, rather.
All right. Do you have new business?
I had some concerns after the prime company's proposal. I've had a number of people reach out to me and ask about previous apartment complexes which we have funded, specifically Union at the Loop, and whether or not the promise of affordable housing for that project has come to fruition, and whether there is a mechanism for us to follow up on the efficacy of our dollars. My understanding is that, or I was told rather, that the vacancy rate at Union at the Loop is someplace very high. I'm not going to quote a number there, but it was indicated to me that it's extremely high, meaning that our dollars went to something which have not been productive. I don't think we have a mechanism in place for going back and talking about those things.
Shannon's got her hand.
Shannon?
Shannon's got her hand up there.
Make sure so what I can tell you is we have had a large number of vouchers used at Union at the Loop. I do not have the dollars or the numbers in front of me, but I can get you that, and I can tell you that our experience is that we've had a harder and harder time finding landlords to take vouchers, and quite frankly, the Union at the Loop has been something that has kept our voucher usage up. So I will provide Leah that number of vouchers that we have being used out there, but I do believe if one measure that you might want to consider is who takes vouchers, even though everybody's supposed to, and where we can use our vouchers, because 70+% of the people we assist are at or below 30% of area median income, so the very low income. And quite frankly, we'd be in really big trouble without Union at the Loop right now.
This is Leah Roseland, Affordable Housing Administrator. Just want to clarify a couple of points. To Thomas's earlier question about the mechanism for acquiring that information, that's why they submit quarterly reports. And as you'll see in Q3 report, they did report that they are serving a total of 117 households, and they have completed construction on 248 units. If you look back into the mid-year reports, you'll see that they only requested the trust fund payment in Q3. That enabled them to complete construction. So they very recently completed construction on all of those units, and they are currently those units are being filled with occupants. And so in terms of the percentage occupancy rate, I'm happy to circle back and request that information. But I will say again, to reiterate, that we do know the total units they built, how many people they're serving with those units, and that they very recently completed construction, so that they'll need some time to fill those units.
Thank you, Leah.
Dana had her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Dana Ortiz, Family Promise of Lawrence. I also concur with Shannon. I don't know the number of households that are being served by Family Promise who have found permanent housing through Union at the Loop, but it's a large number, including a family who'd been in shelter for an extremely long time. On Thursday last week, moved in over there into their own permanent housing. So we would be in a world of hurt if it wasn't for Union at the Loop and the number of units that they've taken families directly from Family Promise in.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Thank you. And, that's, to say that other projects that are, completely full, Polar Loft and the other project down there on, I'm drawing a blank on the name, the one with the sunflower on the side. Whatever that, those are all Penn Street. Those are all basically fully, occupied. So, good things happening.
Yeah, and this is Sarah Waters. I drive by Union every day, a couple times to and from my home, and one of the things that's interesting to me, there's lots of shopping carts from Walmart that are ending up down at their property because they're close by. So people that don't have vehicles are going to Walmart and taking their cart all the way home. And so, no, it's definitely housing people that needed housing is how I see that every single day. So not knowing their vacancy, but knowing they also were just completing construction from my own observation. So,
all right. Anyone else on this topic? Yeah, Christine.
No, not on this topic.
Oh, any other new business?
Yeah, hold on just a minute.
Okay.
All right.
I don't want to interrupt Christine.
Yeah, let her do.
Okay. It's not working. I'm sorry.
Okay. While you work on that, I think Phil has his hand up here in the room. I'm going to let Phil talk. You get that working, you raise your hand there.
Okay. I wanted to, I don't know if this goes on the calendar or new business, but I wanted to make a comment or make a point that I think that the full AHAB, but certainly the AHAB subcommittee on the Land Development Code needs to come back together. This thing is starting to pick up the pace a bit, and, it's real detailed, in the weeds type of stuff, but it has a lot of implications for how the community may well evolve into the future, and that I think that AHAB needs to have. I go to all these things and I write all this stuff, but most of it's just my personal opinion, hopefully somewhat factually based. But I think at some juncture, AHAB needs to step in again with a more another formal statement, which requires that the committee understand what is transpired. So I think that needs to come up here in the next few months in some form or another.
Okay, so are you suggesting that there's a subcommittee that would work on that statement and it would come to this body
we had one for the first set.
Right.
You know,
So you're suggesting a similar process? Is that what I'm hearing?
if that's okay with people, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's
I'd
a
like to
reasonable
know-
thing.
I'd like to know what we think.
I'm not in the weeds on that, but I know you are.
Right.
So we're going to rely on people that are kind of in the weeds to make, and if somebody sees something objectionable, we can talk about it at this board.
okay.
Is that
Yeah,
fair
I mean,
enough? Does that give you the direction you need?
Yeah, all I want is just to get it out there and see if we can't re-energize that particular thing so that
Right.
the larger group has an understanding of what's going on.
And we'll look and see if we can get that on the agenda for
Okay.
December
Okay, that's fine.
and/or February.
Okay.
All right, any other new business? Or anything for the good of the cause?
Did Christina get
Did Christina?
I think yeah, my phone's been hot for a minute with this Zoom, so it gave me a little issues, but it's similar to what was just proposed, that we kind of revisit some of these committees that we had talked about. Philip was absolutely right. There's some new business that we can attend to for the land code development. I also wanted to bring up, Leah shared with both Erica and I, as we are part of the equity inclusion aspect, we're looking at some policy recommendations to consider. Maybe talking more about that in December would be a good opportunity for this group, as it aligns with our racial equity goal and our number 5 goals for strategies for AHAB. So maybe just more discussion on that, and I will share that link, and certainly I'm sure Leah will also share that link in our agenda for December. But just to look at that policy link and what's been done right in other spaces about tenant right to purchase. So maybe discussion on that, and then continue discussion in February and March as we try to shape that policy.
Okay, perfect. We will get that on the agenda as well. Yeah. Go, anything else? All right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your help today, making some tough decisions. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really effective. Good work, Mr. Chair, and out early. Well done.
Well done.
Not much, but a little. All right, thank you.
Thank you.